At first, I ignored it. Just another notification in the middle of Mr. Harper's dull history lecture. The classroom was warm, too warm, and my eyelids were heavy. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the same monotonous buzz they always had. Then another buzz, and another. My phone trembled violently. I frowned and glanced around. No one else reacted. Every other student sat still, hunched over their desks, taking notes like they weren't hearing the same thing. A cold knot twisted in my stomach. I slowly pulled my phone from my pocket and turned it over. Emergency alert system. Trust no one. People are not what they seem. I blinked. That had to be a joke. Some dumb school-wide prank. But my phone vibrated again. Stay calm. Do not react. A chill ran down my spine. I let my gaze drift up, careful to keep my expression neutral. Something was wrong. The air felt too still, like the whole room was holding its breath. Then I noticed it. Every student, the entire class, was moving in perfect unison. Writing, blinking, breathing. I swallowed hard. I wanted to believe I was imagining things, that my brain was playing tricks on me. But then I looked at Mr. Harper. He wasn't teaching anymore. He was staring. Not just at me, through me. His head was tilted slightly, his lips stretched into an unsettling frozen smile. Another vibration. I didn't even look at my phone this time. I needed to leave. Now. Slowly I reached down and grabbed my bag. The chair scraped against the floor as I stood. Too loud, too sharp. The moment I moved, the class stopped. All at once. Not like normal people stopping in action, like machines being switched off. Every single head turned toward me. Every single pair of eyes locked on mine. Mr. Harper's smile widened. Too wide. Going somewhere? His voice was wrong. Too smooth, too controlled. Like he was mimicking how a person should sound. I kept my expression neutral. I forced a nervous laugh. Yeah, bathroom. No one spoke. They just stared. Something inside me screamed at me to run. But I didn't, not yet. I took a slow step back. No one moved. Another step, then another. I turned toward the door, and the entire class stood up. At the same time, my pulse skyrocketed. My fingers closed around the doorknob and I yanked it open. I stepped out, heart pounding. The hallway was empty. Not just empty, wrong. The air was thick, heavy, pressing against my skin. The walls seemed taller, the ceiling farther away. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long, shifting shadows against the lockers. The school was silent. I exhaled shakily. I needed to think, needed to. A sound, low, wet. I turned my head toward the windows and froze. Outside, it was chaos. The sky was no longer blue. It was an unnatural churning red. The clouds twisted in spirals, pulsing like something alive. The street beyond the school was littered with bodies. But they weren't just lying there. They were moving, twitching, convulsing, their limbs bending at angles no human body should be able to. A group of them, people or what used to be people, were gathered in the parking lot. They weren't walking, they were gliding. Their movements were unnatural, like puppets on invisible strings. One of them turned its head, snapping in my direction. Even from here, I could see its face wasn't right. Not a person, not anymore. I stumbled back, sucking in a sharp breath. I needed to get out of here. I turned and started moving down the hallway, forcing my steps to stay even. Controlled. Think. I needed a weapon, a place to hide, a way to escape. But just as I passed the next classroom, the door creaked open. My heart stopped. A student stepped out. I recognized him, Jason, from my math class. But something about him was off. His head twitched slightly. His lips curled into a slow, mechanical smile. "Hey," he said, voice smooth, too smooth. He took a step toward me. My phone buzzed violently. "Do not talk to them. Do not let them touch you." Jason's smile stretched wider. "You look nervous?" I clenched my jaw. My brain screamed at me to act normal, but I could feel the sweat on my palms, my pulse hammering against my skull. Jason took another step. Then another classroom door opened. Then another. More students stepped out. One by one, each one staring, each one smiling, and then they started moving. Not walking, rushing, I ran. I didn't hesitate, didn't look back. I tore down the hallway, my bag slamming against my back. Their footsteps were too fast. Their breathing was too synchronized. I turned a corner and slammed right into something tall. Mr. Harper, his hands shot out, grabbing my shoulders. His fingers too long, too strong. His grin split his face. "Where are you going?" I struggled. His grip tightened. Then, a window shattered. Something screeched. Loud, piercing, not human. It came from outside. Harper's head snapped toward the noise. And in that moment, I wrenched myself free and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the stairwell. I slammed through the door and bolted downward, skipping steps, nearly tripping over myself. The emergency exit was just ahead. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down. "Stop, do not go outside." I skidded to a halt. My breath came in sharp gasps. Through the small window in the door, I could see the parking lot. The figures were closer now. Their faces, twisted imitations of humanity. Their mouths stretched open in unholy grins. And the sky? The sky was splitting open. A dark, gaping void, pulsing, stretching, consuming. I stumbled back, trapped. Upstairs, footsteps, coming. Fast. My phone vibrated again. But I didn't check it. I already knew. There was nowhere left to run. The footsteps above were getting closer. Too fast, too heavy, not human. My breathing was shallow, chest rising and falling too quickly. I was trapped between two nightmares. The twisted things outside and whatever was hunting me inside. I had to move. I turned and bolted toward the only option left, the basement. The school's basement was off limits. Teachers always acted weird about it, like something was wrong down there. But I didn't care. It was my only shot. I reached the stairwell door and yanked it open, the hinges screeching in protest. Darkness gaped below, thick and absolute, the kind that swallowed light whole. The moment I stepped inside, the temperature plummeted. The door slammed shut behind me. I froze. Silence. Then, a breath, not mine. I wasn't alone down here. My fingers fumbled for my phone, hands shaking as I turned on the flashlight. The dim glow barely cut through the heavy darkness. Something moved, a flicker of motion at the bottom of the stairs. I swallowed hard and took a cautious step down. Then another. My shoes barely made a sound against the concrete. The deeper I went, the heavier the air became, pressing against my chest like something watching, waiting. I reached the bottom. The basement stretched ahead, lined with rusted pipes and old storage lockers. Then I saw them. Scratch marks, deep jagged gouges carved into the walls, the floor, the metal lockers, desperate, frantic. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move forward. The hallway twisted in ways it shouldn't, the corners too sharp, too long. My phone buzzed violently. I pulled it out. "You aren't alone. Do not look back." Cold terror slithered down my spine. I wasn't going to. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't going to. A whisper, low, close, right behind me. My body locked up. My breathing was shallow, ragged. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then, something brushed against my shoulder. I ran, blind, reckless, panicked. I tore through the darkness, my phone's beam bouncing wildly. Behind me, footsteps. Slow at first, then faster and faster. Whatever it was chasing me. The hallway twisted, stretching, warping. The air was thick with static, the scent of rust and decay burning my lungs. Then I saw it, a door, old, rusted, but real. I didn't think. I slammed into it, twisting the knob, locked. "No, no, no, no!" The footsteps behind me stopped. Silence. A sharp breath inches away from my ear. I reached into my bag, heart hammering. I pulled out my pocket knife, flipped it open with a shaking hand. Then, a loud bang. The door behind me burst open. A hand grabbed my wrist. I barely had time to scream before I was yanked inside. I slammed into the cold concrete floor, the impact rattling my bones. My phone flew from my hand, the light flickering and dying in an instant. Darkness swallowed me whole. For a moment I didn't move, didn't breathe. My body pressed flat against the cold ground, heart pounding so hard I thought it would rip through my chest. Then I heard it. A soft, slow breath, not from behind me, but from above. The kind of breath that came from someone trying to control their panic. I pushed myself up, my hands scrambling for anything to hold on to. My fingers brushed against the floor, cold and slick with something wet. I froze. The air smelled wrong, like mildew and iron. I swallowed, the taste of metal rising in my throat. I tried to push the thought away, but I couldn't. It was blood. Another breath, closer. I scrambled to my feet, heart thundering in my chest. I had to move, but my legs felt like they were glued to the ground. My body heavy, every instinct screaming to get out of there. But then a voice, low, strained. Not supposed to be here. I spun around. A man was standing just a few feet away. His clothes were ragged, torn at the edges like they had been worn for years. His face was gaunt, hollow-eyed, and covered in dirt, his hair matted to his scalp. His mouth was twisted into a half-grin, too wide, too sharp. I took a step back. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to make my voice steady. I wasn't sure if I even believed the words as I said them. It didn't feel real. The man's eyes locked onto mine, his smile growing. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was hoarse, a raspy whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. "But you'll learn soon enough. You're already a part of it now." I felt a jolt of cold terror shoot through me, but I forced myself to stay focused. I had to think. This couldn't be real. It had to be a trick, a game. I turned and made a run for the door, the only exit out of this nightmare. But the man stepped forward, blocking my way. "Don't run." His smile widened. "It's already too late." I didn't listen. I lunged for the door again, but this time it didn't open. The door handle was locked, but I didn't care. I pounded against it, my fist slamming into the metal with a sickening clang. Then the lights flickered, and the world shifted. The walls around me warped, stretching outward like rubber, twisting like I was inside some kind of grotesque funhouse. The floor tilted, and I had to grab onto the door frame to keep from falling. The man's laugh filled the air, too loud, too inhuman. "That's how it starts," he said, stepping closer. "You'll see it soon. You'll see everything." I shook my head, fighting to keep my feet planted. I didn't understand what he meant. What was he talking about? What was happening to me? I backed away slowly, my heart racing. "Get away from me," I whispered. The man's expression flickered, and for a split second, it wasn't him anymore, it was me. His face twisted and stretched, his features distorting into a grotesque reflection of my own. His eyes widened, my eyes, and his smile turned into something sickeningly familiar. I stumbled back, breath catching in my throat. "That's what they'll do," he said, his voice low and mocking. "They'll turn you into one of them. Just like me, just like everyone." My head spun. I could feel my pulse in my ears, the pressure building behind my eyes. Everything was wrong. I turned again, desperate to escape. And then I saw it. Through the warped hallway, a shadow moved. Not the man. Something worse. A tall, featureless figure that loomed just at the edge of my vision. Dark as a void, shifting like smoke. It was too large to be human, its shape constantly changing, bending, twisting into something unknowable. The man, the thing, saw it too. His expression shifted from mocking amusement to something darker. "Don't look at it," he whispered, his voice a ragged warning. "Don't look at it or it'll see you." I didn't think. I ran. My feet flew across the basement, and the distorted world around me twisted even further. Every corner bent and stretched. I felt like I was running in circles. The door I had tried to open now impossibly far away. Then, a voice, louder than all the others, rose from the depths of the basement. "She's mine!" It wasn't the man. It was something else. Something deep. Something alive. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My throat was dry, my vision swimming. I stumbled into a wall, but didn't stop. I couldn't. The darkness closed in from every side. The floors warped beneath my feet, and I could feel something cold, like fingers brushing against my ankles. I needed to escape. I couldn't hear the man anymore. I didn't want to look back. I ran toward the stairs, the only way up. But the stairwell had changed. The stairs were twisted and broken, leading down into a dark pit of shifting shadows. My breath caught in my chest. The cold grip of dread tightened around my heart. Then a sound. A voice. Not from behind me, but from above. A crackling voice, warped and static-filled. "She won't get out. No one does." I stood frozen at the base of the warped stairwell, the distorted echoes of the deep voice still reverberating. Before I could think, I was in another dimension, where things did not exist in the human world, and before I caught my breath, I saw a figure standing across from me, dribbling. The dribbling ceased, the figure straightened, the ball rolling away into the shadows. It turned to face me, and my breath caught in my throat. It was me, or rather, a grotesque imitation, a twisted reflection with hollow eyes and a sinister grin. The doppelganger tilted its head, mirroring my movements with eerie precision. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. It responded in a distorted version of my own voice. "I am what you cannot escape." Panic surged through me. I took a step back, But the doors behind me slammed shut with a deafening bang. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew thick with an oppressive force. The doppelganger advanced, its movements fluid yet unnatural. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for the pocket knife I always carried. With trembling hands, I flipped it open, the blade gleaming under the harsh spotlight. "Stay back," I shouted, brandishing the knife. It laughed, a chilling, hollow sound that echoed through the empty gymnasium. "You cannot fight what is within." Before I could react, it lunged at me with inhuman speed. I slashed wildly, but my blade met only air. A searing pain erupted in my chest as its hand plunged into me, fingers like icy daggers piercing my flesh. I gasped, the knife slipping from my grasp and clattering to the floor. Coldness spread from the wound, engulfing my body, my vision blurred. Darkness creeping in from the edges. The last thing I saw was my own face, twisted into a malevolent grin, whispering, "You are mine now." And then there was nothing.